Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Shutter Sports Refresh. This is the weekly show that breaks down all of the most important news in sports for you. I'm your host Finn Noel, and let's get right started this week with some F1. Now, for the first time in a long time, the F1 Drivers' Championship is closed as we head into the end of the season. On Saturday, we had the Qatar Grand Prix, which was the second last Grand Prix of the year, and there are still 3 racers vying for that top spot. Now, of those 3 drivers, 2 of them were driving for McLaren, and they were able to secure the Constructors' Championship a few months ago. Those 2 drivers are Lando Norris, who's currently sitting in first at 390 points, and Oscar Piastri, who's currently sitting in second with 366 points. Now, last week during the Vegas Grand Prix, we saw both Norris and Piastri get disqualified for driving illegal cars. And with some crazy drama, the winner of that race was the 3rd place in the driver's standings, Red Bull's Max Verstappen. Now, because Norris and Piastri didn't receive any points for that win, Verstappen was able to catch up 25 points in the standings. So that meant the Qatar Grand Prix would be a major one for that Drivers' Championship. Now, during the race, Piastri was able to lead for most of the laps, but Verstappen was able to catch him just at the very end and win the Grand Prix. Norris finished in 4th. And with Verstappen's win, we have a major switch up in the standings. Right now, Norris is still in the lead with 408 points, followed closely behind by a newly 2nd place Max Verstappen at 396. And then just 16 points behind Verstappen, we have Piastri, who's now in 3rd. Now, that Drivers' Championship is still up for grabs as we reach the final race of the season, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, and that goes down next week. You've got to make sure to tune back into the refresh to hear the results of that one. Let's move over to the NFL now, where it was Thanksgiving week. There were 3 games on Thursday, 1 game on Friday, and a whole ton of games on Sunday. First off, we'll look at the Detroit Lions, who took on the Green Bay Packers in a massive game with playoff implications. And as for that one, it was the Packers quarterback Jordan Love who had himself a day, throwing 4 touchdowns and beating the slow and steady Detroit Lions. Next up, it was the Kansas City Chiefs losing to the Dallas Cowboys in a major upset. The Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes was not able to score during the 2nd or 3rd quarter, and that's what gave the Cowboys the win. Another big one, the Chicago Bears upset the reigning Super Bowl champions Philadelphia Eagles and now hold the best record in the entire NFC conference. And if you watch football, you know the Bears have been a bit of a joke of a franchise over the last few years, so this is just crazy to see. But none of these matchups were as big as what went down on Sunday night between the Denver Broncos and the Washington Commanders. The Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels suffered an injury early in the season and has barely played any games, and their team was on a 6-game losing streak. The Broncos, on the other hand, have had everything go their way this season with a bunch of close wins. So most fans assumed the Broncos would take an easy win in the matchup, and that's how things seemed to go for the first 3 quarters. But the Broncos offense ended up sputtering in the clutch, and the Commanders were able to kick a field goal to send the game into overtime. Now, in overtime, the Broncos were able to score plus a 1-point conversion. And in overtime, each team now gets 1 chance at a score, so on their chance, the Commanders scored as well. But instead of going for a 1-point conversion in the tie, they went for a 2-point conversion and the win. But unfortunately, they just weren't able to complete that 2-point conversion, so the Broncos sneak away with a 1-point win. What an exciting Thanksgiving matchup. Let's move over to college football now, where it is the last week of the regular season as we creep very close to playoffs. Now, the biggest game this week was between Vanderbilt and Tennessee, where Vanderbilt was able to take home the win, keeping their playoff dreams alive as an underdog team all season. And so next week, we have the conference championship matchups. Now, the 4 biggest conferences are set to play on Saturday with some massive playoff implications. First off, we have the Big 12 Bowl going down between number 11 BYU and number 5 Texas Tech. Now, BYU needs to win this game to sneak into the playoffs, and Texas Tech could lose and still make it in, but it's unlikely. Next up, we have the SEC Championship between the number 4 Georgia and the number 10 Alabama. And this situation is similar. Alabama needs a win to make it into the playoffs, but Georgia could sneak in even with a loss. In the ACC Championship game, we have the number 18 Virginia taking on the unranked Duke. And finally, the biggest game of them all by far is between number 1 Ohio State and number 2 Indiana for the Big Ten Championship. This is going to be some incredible football between 2 incredible teams. No matter what, both of them will be making the playoffs. And for our last piece of news this week, it was match day 5 of 8 in Champions League football, so let's see how things went. Now, the biggest game on Tuesday was between Chelsea and Barcelona. Now, Chelsea was able to take the lead early thanks to a deflection and an own goal from Barcelona. They were able to ride that positive momentum into a 3-0 win. Now, a big shock was Leverkusen taking down Man City 2-0. Now, Man City had 3 times as many shots on goal in this one, but Leverkusen made their shots count and were able to take home the win. And in another big shock, the English Liverpool was taken down by the Dutch team PSV 4-1. It wasn't even close. And perhaps the biggest matchup of the week was between Arsenal and Bayern Munich, who each lead their respective leagues. Now, Arsenal started the scoring with a goal in the 22nd minute, but they were very quickly answered in the 32nd minute. Now, things would stay close after halftime, but in the second half, it was Arsenal's Madueke who came up with a very clutch goal, and Arsenal was able to take home the win. Make sure to stay tuned for more football content coming to the Refresh next week. And that is it for this week's episode of the Shutter Sports Refresh. I've been your host, Finn Noel, and I hope you learned something today. You can check me, Shutter Sports Media, and our writer for this episode, Lucky Roberts, out on Instagram right below my head. Thanks for watching.